Hey guys, welcome again, episode number 6. Certainly going far into this now, just coming off the back of the Buried Alive match. For those of you that have not tuned in before to this WrestleMania podcast, this is a special on series that we're doing on In Your House. We're going through a multitude of matches, some obscure, some quite well known, and we've been going through up and down the years, no chronological order at all. And on this one particular episode that you are tuning into, we are going to do for the first time on an episode in this series, we are going to do not one but 2 matches, because it's mainly featured around Bret Hart, and I kind of felt like if we're going to do the Bret Hart Hakushi match, which is the first match at the first In Your House, bearing in mind that there is going to be another match featuring Bret on the same show, I thought, it'd be kind of silly not to have it, and one is like a lot shorter than the other. So we're going to do 2 in this one. This is Bret Hart versus Hakushi, and then we're going to do Bret Hart versus Jerry the King Lawler. So as per usual, I encourage everybody to fire up their WWE network, head on over to In Your House, and it's In Your House 1. There's no I don't think there was a tagline with this one, but it's In Your House 1. And the time you want to find is 2 minutes and 48 seconds. 2 minutes, 48 seconds. Guys, you go and find that. Hit the pause button on the podcast. Come back to me when you're on it. And on the count of 1, we are going to hit play. So that's 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Let's do this. On the count of 1, we're going to press play. 3, 2, 1. And you should see Vince McMahon and handsome Doc Hendricks, aka Michael P.S. Hayes. And this was his, I think really he got this gig out of that, to be honest with you. This is how it all kind of come about. It is very odd. I think Vince's expression there at the end of that is my expression of the whole thing. So here we go. This is the first In Your House pay-per-view. So I guess we could not hit number 1, as we're going to go, up and down and do a series on this. So being that this is the first ever match on the show as well, it's even better. Here's Hakushi coming into the ring. This had a lot of hype about it, just because from a technical standpoint, people wanted to see this, but I think that's pretty cool. Just watching here as we watch the superstars background. I think that realistically, the idea here was to see if these two had like as good as chemistry. I certainly when WWE signed Hakushi, I think listening to people like Bruce Pritchard on his podcast, he said that they thought he'd be a lot bigger than he was. And that when he turned up in person, he kind of wasn't what they were quite looking for, which is a little bit unfortunate, I think, on his part, to have that. But, it's just, I suppose that's how you get it. It's a cool look. I mean, the whole, covered in Japanese symbols there and writing. There's Todd Pettengill with the famous mullet standing by with Bret Hart. What an iconic haircut as well. This is the moustache from Doc Hendricks and his mullet really go well. Also, it's worth pointing out that this is the first In Your House we've done from 1995. So we've hit, arguably the last year that I'm probably going to go to in this series. Don't forget, guys, if you haven't subscribed to our podcast, please do so. Support us in doing that. Share us. Be really, really grateful, guys, that you can do that. If you're into retrospective stuff and you've got any other ideas or suggestions, other series to do, let me know, and I'll definitely be looking into it, because I keep saying that we're going to go to at least 10 on this, and I'm kind of thinking that 10 at the moment will probably be it, unless anything really crazily changes. But I've got 10 mapped out at the moment in my head. So this is obviously number 6. We're sort of at just past the halfway point now on this one. Just give you a little bit of background about this pay-per-view then, as I'm looking here on a little bit of wiki. So this is May 14th, 1995, all the way from New York, this show. So, the first one, this was literally just after WrestleMania 11, and the pay-per-view after this would be King of the Ring, 95. So, it's... when they decided to come up with the whole in-your-house concept, it was about basically seeing if they could run more pay-per-views. WCW had just started doing it as well, and it was WWE's way of like trying to get in on that a little bit and try to see if they could do more pay-per-views as such, which obviously, did work out quite well, I suppose. Looking back, I think that's what they wanted. I think they were promoted at US dollars like $14.95, which was cheaper than WWF's other pay-per-views in an effort to increase its revenue from the pay-per-view market. So very interesting times there, and it also would cement the decline and cancellation of its network television Saturday night's main event. So really, if you think about it, and I have actually been thinking about doing Saturday night's main event after this, which I think would be pretty cool, but this is Saturday night's main event sort of, this is where they went to. I don't think it's like another version. I don't really count it as another version because it's the pay-per-view business, and Saturday night's main event are like this crazy history with like NBC and stuff, like of producing like wrestling on more network television. So let's get into this match then. So I have to say I am a little bit more familiar with this match because I don't know if anybody else started to buy these, but WWE, when Clear Vision went, or Silver Vision kind of left, and the whole WWF logo changed, they started to release In Your House on DVDs, and they were doing like loads of tagged classics. I've harped on about this a lot, about how much I love the VHSs over DVDs. That is a classic example of how bad effort they put in, because those tagged classics, they literally, all they did was stick on 2 very small printed like covers of the VHS look, and on the back, they did give you all the matches, but there was no effort to make it look cool or jazzed it up, and everything like that. All their old DVDs was just like all like this huge combination of just tagged classics, and I stopped kind of collecting them because I just thought, I think I got to about, I don't know, like 7 and 8, and then I just got really fed up with it because they just didn't look very appealing, and there was no way I was going to get rid of my VHSs, quite frankly. So I'd had this one on tagged classics, so it kind of made me revisit and watch this, but again, there wasn't a whole lot to the way it was presented, so I kind of got bored with collecting them. But let me know what you guys thought of that. Like, did anyone ever collect tagged classics? Because I started doing it in lots of things, not just that, but like the WrestleManias and it was kind of hideous looking. There was not much to it at all. So we see Hakushi. Hakushi, by the way, he's a quality worker. I mean, Japan, he was very much out there. He wasn't sort of considered, I don't think, by Japanese sort of purists as, like a Jushin Thunder Liger or a Ultimo Dragon, that sort of type. But he certainly had the reputation and name just by the look. And obviously WWF at this time was very, especially in 95, quite sort of cartoony. And I think here, like at this sort of particular point, they were looking for opponents for Bret where he could have solid work matches with. But like I said at the beginning, I know that when they went out and signed him, they thought he'd be a lot bigger and taller and have a little bit more presence. And here you can see that I think even Bret's taller than him. So obviously that didn't pay off. But, he has got a very interesting look there. See the referee there, Tim White. Obviously, people would have known who he is. He was been in WWF for such a long time. He did lots of different things, like a road agent. He was obviously Andre the Giant's. He used to go around with him a lot. Quite good friends with him in the end. Anyone that's seen the Andre the Giant documentary that came out in the last couple of years, he was featured very heavily on that. Kind of come across like a really decent guy, actually, because he's somebody that I really hadn't. He's somebody you don't really hear about a lot. I've never really seen interviews with him, like just talking about wrestling or like some of his career. I think he's stayed away from that. There's Jerry Lawler, who's obviously enjoying this because he wants to see Bret beat up as much as he possibly can, because he knows he's going to get his hands on him. For my long-term listeners, you'll remember we did a King of the Ring retrospective, and we did like all 10 of them. And Jerry Lawler and Bret Hart featured quite heavily on that many a times. Well, this would have been, around that sort of time where all that sort of come to happening. In terms of Bret's career and like the story here, like Bret, we're just coming out of WrestleMania 11. He'd done like a match. It's a very odd type setup that he had at 11, because I suppose people probably wouldn't regard it as like one of Bret's big sort of outings, I guess, at this WrestleMania. But just because I think he'd come off number 10 in very heroic fashion, being lifted up and going through his brother Owen and then beating Yokozuna, sort of like redemption from the year before of 9. And obviously the focus on 11 was all around Shawn Michaels and Diesel. And Diesel at this point is the heavyweight champion. And again, my long-term listeners will know we featured him on a line kind of version of a podcast where we followed his career in WWF. But yeah, WrestleMania 11, in terms of it for Bret, it was a Bob Backlund match, and it was like an I Quit thing. Roddy Piper was the special guest referee. But Bret loved it. By all accounts, Bret was... I don't think he felt Bob Backlund was at his absolute best, but he liked the idea of having that match, certainly. So for him to have that. And it's interesting because obviously Bret had lost his belt to Bob Backlund. I think they did like a house show, or I can't remember how it all worked. But then Diesel beat him in like 10 seconds or something ridiculous. I hope everybody is okay, depending on when you're listening to this. You might be listening to this, I don't know, a few years after this has gone out. I do keep these up for a long time, so who knows when you would have come across this. But if you're into In Your House and you want to do a little bit more watch-alongs with me, be sure to check out our first couple. We started at In Your House 12 between Bret and Sid. We've done Vader and Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels, Owen Hart, Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker at Hell in a Cell, Bad Blood. And just recently we did The Undertaker and Mankind Buried Alive match. So far this match, I think WWF, whoever put this down in Brighton, would have been quite happy with what's happening. I think for WWF, this is a little bit out of the norm at the time to have this kind of match, but certainly they needed to freshen things up with new talent. But it's one of those things, I can tell even just looking at the crowd that maybe they're not as into this as you'd think they should be. But again, the time and generation that we're in here is slightly more different. And